Hey there. Welcome to episode 61 of Toy Talk with Mike and Chad. I'm Mike,
I'm Chad.
and the toys that we're going to be talking about today is our new G.I. Joes. So it wasn't that long ago that we did a video where we reviewed a whole bunch of G.I. Joes, pretty much everything we got from Christmas right up until April. Is that fair? Or maybe March? I don't know.
I feel like it would have been pre-accident, at least.
Okay, yeah. So we'll recap for anybody that maybe doesn't know. You and me, we usually do these videos together sitting in my little toy room down here. You broke your leg, is what you're referring to as the accident.
Yeah,
So now you're stuck at home and we're doing these remotely until you're back on your feet.
and can buy toys.
Um, yeah, and when did you break your leg? When was the accident?
As Valentine's Day.
Okay. Well, whatever. Regardless of when that we'd covered, I don't know, it was like 15 GI Joes, I think, on our last episode. And it was, so let's just say it was everything from December, January, and February,
Okay.
pretty much. But now it's mid-April, and we've got another 11 GI Joes plus a vehicle to review again. And we keep putting these things off because we're like, well, we might as well wait for that one more GI Joe to show up, and then we'll do the video. But they never stop. Like, we decided to shoot this video the other day because we were like, okay, that last figure we're waiting on is supposed to arrive. Why don't we shoot it the day it arrives? But then it showed up, and then we got another email that said, our Techno-Viper and our missile launchers are now in the mail. So we don't have those with us today, but we're already going to be behind the eight ball. As soon as, by the time I post this, we'll probably have a new G.I. Joe in our hands.
Yeah.
Yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe.
All right, should we just get started?
Let's get started. Get right into it.
All right. I actually don't remember what this guy is called, but right off the bat, you see him on screen right now. This is the, I think, G.I. Joe Action Sailor. Is that right?
Yeah, 60th anniversary action sailor, I want to say.
Yeah, something like that. So this is kind of unique for G.I. Joe in that he is just a trooper, kind of a nameless trooper. He's not a named character with a code name like Duke or Snake Eyes. This guy is just meant to be a generic trooper. Now, it's not the first time they've done that. Back in the vintage, well, when I say vintage, I mean like the 1980s G.I. Joe line, which is what you and I are passionate about, the real American hero era of
Yeah.
G.I. Joe. They had the Steel Brigade Trooper, which was kind of a nameless trooper, but that was it. But then in the 2000s, they started putting just regular green shirts, which were just kind of support soldiers for the main G.I. Joe team. But yeah, I think this is the first one in the classified line that we're getting. So, any thoughts?
I like him. Initially, when I heard about the 60th anniversary line, when did they announce that? January, I want to say. It was like
Yeah, something like that.
when they announced this character, I was like, meh, I don't really need it. And then the more I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, this guy is cool. Like, I love all the gear that comes with him. I like the option for the alternate head. That's another great feature because truly makes him an army builder. All his equipment, and I like his little scuba machine thing that he's got there. His little propeller.
Yeah, his little like propulsion thing that
Yeah,
would pull him through the
it's
water.
super cool. Like, and
Yeah,
I guess I'm just really happy that they didn't repaint his face from a torpedo face. Like
yeah.
it looks like it's a different head sculpt, which is nice because I'm not in the game of buying 50 million repaints.
Who are you kidding?
I
Yeah.
do, yeah, I have, but
But yeah,
no, this is like a really solid figure, and I don't know too much about Joe's from back in those days in the 60s, but weren't they originally like 12-inch dolls?
yeah, that's the thing. So that's obviously before my time. But the fact that they're calling these the 60th anniversary, like it's obviously not the 60th anniversary of the 1982
Right.
GI Joes, which is when I started collecting GI Joe. So it's the 60th anniversary of the original GI Joe 12-inch dolls that launched in the 1960s. And yeah, back then they were all generic
Hmm.
soldiers. Like, so you got the Navy guy or the Air Force guy, but they didn't have names like code names like Snake Eyes or Duke, and they didn't have file cards with real names like like Bob Smith or anything. Like they were just Action Sailor, things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are kind of strangely an homage to the 1960s GI Joe, which the classified line up to this point hasn't really referenced the 60s GI Joe at all. It's been very much based on the
80s.
80s GI Joe. So yeah, the propulsion unit there, I think that's really cool. That reminds me of the diver that I had back in the 80s because my brother had Torpedo, the original diver, and then I had Wetsuit. And Wetsuit came with something like this that was like a little thing that propelled him through the water. So yeah, this is pretty cool. This one looks a little bit more retro than Wetsuits did, but yeah, it's a pretty neat little item. Yeah, he's well stocked, so he's got his flippers that are removable there. So that's got those. He's got this little demolitions pack that comes off. He's got this little, I don't know, vest thing that goes around his neck that comes off. You see, I've got him with a gun here with a removable silencer, I guess that is. Then he's got his little breather backpack here. He's got a knife sheathed on his leg. But yeah, these guys came in larger boxes than what we're used to seeing. And of course, they charged us more.
Yeah. It was
Um,
almost kind of like a deluxe figure box, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Like I forget what they actually classify these things as, like basic, deluxe, supreme, whatever. But yeah, I've got a bunch of accessories for that guy here. So besides the stuff that I already showed you, like he's got this harpoon gun, he's got like machine gun, he's got this thing here, which I think attaches to his chest. You can't put all this stuff on him at once, obviously. He's got a little too much stuff. Then he's got a little set of dog tags.
Now that's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. And then this piece here, so he's got the diving mask with the clear goggles, which I really like.
Yeah.
Um, because yeah, you can put that right over his face, like so. And I know the quality of the video is not great when we're doing these remote videos, so I don't know if you guys will be able to see this at home, but you can see his eyes right through the goggles there, which is very cool.
Well, we won't have to put up with the remote episodes for too much longer.
Yeah. Now, one thing you mentioned Torpedo. I'm going to bring him out here. So this was the original GI Joe diver from 1983, I believe, and so they've done him in the classified line. And when I first saw this figure announced, I thought it was straight up a repaint of Torpedo, but they have changed a few things, including the mask. So you can see his breather works differently than Torpedo's. Torpedo kind of wraps around to the back of his backpack there. This guy's doesn't. The hose is attached to the front. Torpedo does not have clear goggles, so you can't see his eyes through there. So I prefer the new guy's helmet. And yeah, I thought, even when I saw pictures, I thought for sure they had just repainted Torpedo's head because this guy, you can see he's got a bit of a scowl
Yeah.
on his face. And so does Torpedo. Let me get his mask off here. So again, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this in the video, but like, yeah, Torpedo's just got kind of this scowling face with the tight little mask around his head there, whatever. But yeah, when you get them up close side by side, you realize no, they actually are different head sculpts. It's not super easy to tell. And the last thing I want to show you, the last accessory, you mentioned the alternate head. So yeah, he comes with an alternate head, which again is, he looks angry. I don't know if divers are just angry by nature. All these guys are scowling. But I think these are all unique head sculpts. It's hard to tell because, there's no hair. It's really just the faces that you're judging it on.
Yeah. He looked.
And they all have a similar, like, furrowed brow and stuff. But I think looking at their noses and stuff, I think these are all unique head sculpts. Whoops. So, yeah, you can see we've got one white guy head and one black guy head. So you've got the option to display him however you want. I have Torpedo on my shelf with his scuba mask on, so I'm probably going to choose to display him without his mask, and I think I'm going to use the African American head on him. What about
The
you? How do you think you put this guy up in your
I'll
shelf?
probably do the same because I think I don't. Torpedo is Hawaiian,
Yeah,
so he's sort of kind of white, but not really. Um,
I'm not going to go there. I don't know if Hawaiians are
I'm
kind
not
of white or
either,
kind
but
of
like
whatever. But
his skin tone, looking at his skin tone, um,
yeah,
he looks more white. So I'll probably display him with the African American head as well. But the white dude's head there looks like Agent Smith from The Matrix.
yeah, I can see that. Again, I doubt these guys will be able to tell that from here, but yeah, I could see that maybe.
Mr.
Although
Hugo
he's got
Weaving.
kind of blonde eyebrows,
Yeah,
so
that's
I don't really think. But one thing that I think is a little odd is since they are paying homage to the 1960s GI Joe with this guy, what I don't understand is why they didn't include a 1960s head with this guy. Because like the iconic GI Joe head from the 1960s has that fuzzy hair and the
yeah.
fuzzy beard, and it seems like a no-brainer that they should have put that head in here with this guy as an option. Like I would have preferred that over the optional white guy head, but even better if they gave me all three. So it just seems like a bit of a miss that the fact that this is a generic soldier, he's not based on the 1980s toy line. So there's probably some people, like my brother Doug, for example, who's a toy collector, but he's not quite as hardcore as I am. He always asks me to pick up the new GI Joe figures when I find them, but he didn't want this guy because it's no relation to the 80s
Mhm.
property. He's like, I don't need that one. So there's a lot of 80s collectors that will probably take that stance. And I think a lot of 60s collectors might see, like, oh, this guy's called Action Soldier. It's the 60th anniversary. This is based on the old dolls that I like. But the fact that they don't throw them a bone by giving them the bearded head seems like some of those guys, you've given them a reason to pass on it as well. So I don't know how well these guys are going to sell. I hope they do well because I'd like to see more of them. But I think Hasbro dropped the ball there without the bearded head. Should we talk about the other 60th anniversary figure?
Sure.
All right. Can you see him?
Yep.
All right. Now, do you remember what they call this guy? Is he like 60th anniversary? They don't call him Desert Soldier. I think he's maybe just infantry or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Infantry.
I can't remember, but he's clearly a desert trooper. He's dressed in kind of desert camo. He looks like he could be a support trooper to Dusty.
Yep.
All right. So, what are your thoughts on this guy?
Again, I like this guy. I love that they threw in kind of the dog tags again. We don't have any classifieds to my knowledge with dog tags, so it's
Major
major,
Blood, I think,
major
has dog
blood.
tags
So it's
because
nice.
he collects the dog tags of his
Yeah,
victims. So yeah, he's got a couple of dog tags around his neck.
but it's nice to see them incorporate that. Coming from like a military family, any military person always had dog tags, so it's nice to
Yeah,
see that thrown in. He does come with a ghillie suit. I'm not a fan of that. I think it's a little too much. Um, like what
yeah.
if?
Well, why don't I get that here?
Yeah,
Like, yeah, the ghillie suit is this smock he wears essentially. I'm sure there's some army guys that would not like me saying that, but it's his apron.
so
And
like I can appreciate why the ghillie suit is in there. I just think that if you put that on him over all of his gear, it makes him look super huge, and it's a little too much. So I'm not quite sure when I get mine how I would display it with or without the suit. I'm kind of tempted to put just the suit on him so that way it stands out a little bit from the other crew.
yeah,
But as a whole, with the ghillie suit over his equipment, I don't like. don't like it, but the sculpt and everything looks sick. I love all his accessories. I like the extra pouches that you can clip onto his body, and it's cool.
Yeah. If I can speak to that for a second, I keep bumping my phone here. Sorry if everybody's getting seasick from this, but it's very awkward to shoot these setups. Um,
It's only awkward if you make it awkward.
well, thing I have very limited space to work with, and to try and keep myself centered on camera and fidget with this thing, and I've got all these like lights on these arms, and I got my phone on a little arm. It's like I'm trying to wrestle with Doctor Octopus here. I got things all over the freaking place.
It's okay.
But
Maybe one more episode at most,
yeah.
and then we'll be
Well, like
back
these
in the
aren't too
black.
bad, and it might give us an excuse to maybe bring on some guest stars sometime. Like even when you are capable of joining me back here in the man cave, it might be nice to have guests on, and we can do some remote episodes. So, but anyway, yeah, the pouches. This is pretty cool, and I do kind of think now, like you don't collect any Action Force figures from
No,
Valaverse. I figure most of our viewers are probably familiar with them if they've either watched my channel or if you're just a 6-inch military collector, you probably have come across Valaverse figures at some point. But basically, um, Valaverse has been doing Action Force figures, and they have a generic trooper like this too. And for whatever reason, there seems to be a lot of online, you know, bickering between Joe fans and Action Force fans. And when Hasbro said they were going to do these generic troopers, a lot of people were chirping, saying like, "Oh, you're just ripping off Valaverse because they did generic troopers first." And I think that's rather silly. There's nothing all that original about doing generic soldiers. But what I do find to be kind of curious, and I think is maybe a little ripped off, is these pouches. Everything on this guy's pack here, like this front pouch, it just comes off with a peg. This pouch here just comes off with a peg. So he's got all these little ports on him, and he's got so many of them around the front and the back. And Marauder Task Force has a line of figures. Well, Marauders Gunrunners is the company, and then Marauders Task Force is their line of military figures. And they're only 4-inch figures, but they kind of originated this years ago, where all the ports are interchangeable, so you can put different pouches or different sheaths or holsters. And yeah, it seems to me that I think Hasbro probably borrowed that gimmick from Marauder. I think that's fair to say. But
well, I can't think
anyway,
of any toy line that doesn't borrow from another toy line, right?
yeah, it's just with that, like that truly was an innovative thing that Marauder did because people like us, we like to army build. So when you've got generic soldiers, sure, you could buy 20 of them and then they all look the exact same, and that's kind of a bummer. But if you can have one guy have a pouch here, another guy with the pouch here, another guy with it over here, another guy, all the little customizations makes it easier to want to army
Yeah,
build and differentiate your characters. So I've never seen Hasbro do anything like that on their 12-inch dolls or any of their previous lines, even non-GI Joe lines, Marvel Legends, anything like that. So this innovation, they're doing it years after Marauder did it, so I can't help but think they borrowed it from them, which I'm all for. It's a cool idea. I think it works better for Hasbro, to be honest with you, probably just based on the size, because you've seen my Marauder
yeah,
figures. The pouches fall off of them very easily. You pick up a figure and all the things start coming off of them because the ports aren't very deep, because the figures are small, the pouches are really small. These guys here, there's enough depth to the ports, and the little pegs are long enough that it actually stays in shape. Now, mind you, I don't think you could take this guy out in the sandbox and play with him for an hour without losing all those things. But as far as standing him up on my shelf, he holds up quite well.
and it's nice to have things that actually stick and play.
Yeah. So now for other stuff, he's got, besides what you see with there, he's got another machine gun, which is pretty cool. He has, I see another little, I don't know, this is just part of a gun, I think. Clips on somewhere. He's got this bullet belt, which, are you seeing that? Okay.
Yep.
And so that is for use with this big ass machine gun. This is the one I think comes with Roadblock. So it's got like a removable tripod on it. But yeah, this is a really cool gun here too. So it comes with that. Now he also comes with an alternate head. So you can see I've got him currently displayed with the white guy head, but here is an optional black guy head. And I'm glad that they went the extra mile because you can see he's got fingerless gloves on. Now, mind you, if I was designing this character, I probably would have just said give him full gloves. That way we don't have to worry about it. But they said, nope, if he has fingerless gloves, so we're going to give you an extra set of hands so that he has black fingers. If you decide to give him the black head, you don't
Oh,
have
that's
mismatching
cool.
hands.
That's cool.
So that's cool that you have the option to do that. And yeah, then the other thing I mentioned, so you got the ghillie suit, you've got this hood that goes on him, and you've also got this version of the hood that's meant to be down. So you can pop his head off and put this around his head so it looks like his hood is down. The helmet's removable. I don't know if I could try and put the ghillie suit on him right now, but I might have to wrestle with it for a minute. So I'm gonna I think I have to pop his head off to do that. Um, but yeah, entertain them, Chad, while I mess around with this.
Oh God, I don't like being put on the spot like that. Um,
Tell a joke.
what?
Tell a joke or something.
What did the
I'm,
pervert frog say?
I don't know. What did the pervert frog say?
Rub it, rub it. Oh
Lovely.
God.
All right. So let me see here. So yeah, you can see I popped the head off, which I'm terrified to do because it was actually one of my Action Force figures that I was popping the head off
It
while I was
broke.
doing one of my videos, and I snapped the neck peg.
Yeah.
So I'm very cautious of that. So yeah, you can put his head in the hood here, like so. And now I'll put his head on. Oops. And I just lost his display base. But anyway, so there you go. That's the figure with the ghillie suit and with the hood. So yeah, like that's a cool look, but also kind of goofy. Like it looks like he's, I don't know, off to grandma's house in a rainstorm or something. He's like, I think he looks cooler without all this gear on. But like, if
Yeah.
you're somebody that likes to have a diorama and you want to display him in one of your house plants or something with his ghillie suit on, kind of undercover, then yeah, great. But for me, I don't think I'm going to display him like this. But you can see the ghillie suit even has a little pouch in the
Pouch
front
in
to
the front.
store some extra ammo. That's pretty cool. All right, let's put him away and move on to the next one. Okay, so the next couple of figures. So this was a full wave of Joes, which I think there was like 4 figures in this wave, technically. So we're going to start with this guy who is, I'm telling you right now, this guy's a contender for me when we get to our best of the year list because I love the Techno-Viper from when I was a kid. So yeah, this guy's like the Cobra technology Viper. So he was the guy that's always, he was always fixing my HISS tanks and fixing the computers and stuff. He was like the Cobra IT guy.
Yep.
Did you have this guy when you were a kid?
No, I can confidently say I didn't.
No, he's super cool. Like I love the bright purple.
Yeah, the colors definitely pop. I like the tech display on his arm, like
Yeah, that's
the
something new.
hologram.
Everything else he's got here are based on old stuff, but yeah, I don't know if you can see this up close, but he's got this translucent little like blueprint that plugs into his forearm. You can take it off, but yeah, it looks like he's looking at a hologram,
Yeah.
like blueprint or something. Yeah, I don't know if you can make out any of the details on this thing, but
I also
it's
like
got like the Cobra logo and some like energy bars or something. I don't know.
the silver logo on his chest. Like the is that now I'm colorblind, so is that purple and a darker purple, or is that a black?
No, he's two-tone purple.
Okay, so I
He
like.
does have some black on him too, but like yeah, his chest is dark purple.
Okay,
Otherwise, he's kind of a
I
I don't
think
know
it makes it
magenta-y
pop.
purple, and then a darker purple. And then those yellow eyes really kind of pop
Mhm.
as well. Like it's just a really interesting design. Like there's just a lot going on there.
Now, is this something you would
Uh,
buy more than one of?
yeah, I would love to
Okay.
have bought more than one of him. Um, Now, mind you, it helps me justify doing that if they give you something different, like our bats had battle damaged heads.
Yep.
So we bought two, one to put the regular head on, one to put the battle damaged head. This guy, if I bought him twice, he would be the exact same, other than maybe one guy, I'd put his gun in his left hand and one guy in his right hand or something to differentiate them, but otherwise it'd be the same. But yeah, if these things were more affordable, I would love to have more of these because it's just such a nice looking figure.
And it's getting, Jesus, more expensive. Like every time we go to a store, well, I mean, I haven't been going out a lot in the last 3 months, but like I went with you a couple days ago to GameStop there, and we stopped into the Toys R Us, and like some of the, I think pretty much all standard GI Joe figures are 45.99 there, and
Yeah, like we saw this guy.
yeah,
We commented like this looks like this is the kind of figure that would be in demand. He's an army builder. He's cool looking. He's a Cobra Trooper. Those things are hard to hold on to. But yeah, they're $45 Canadian plus tax, which is going to be close to $50 when all's said and done. That yeah, who can army build at those prices? It's crazy.
and it's not just. I should clarify, it's not just GI Joe that has
Yeah,
these increases. It's pretty much every friggin' toy line that we collect has at least gone up a couple dollars. Like I think
but
most,
to be fair, just to our people that are international viewers or whatever, Toys R Us is by far the
yeah,
craziest. Like GameStop sells these same figures for I want to say maybe like 35 or 37, and then we get a discount, or at least I do. I have an Onyx membership which gives me 15% off. So if he's listed at 35 or something, I get him for like 32. And then you go to Toys R Us and yeah, they're asking 45 bucks. No discount or anything. So like if I miss out on one at GameStop and I have to go to Toys R Us, it's brutal.
yeah.
But yeah, this guy looks great. He's got his gun with a little hose that attaches to his backpack. And then you can see he's got 3 sets of tools, which is just like the vintage figure. I think the tools were silver on the vintage figure. But yeah, he's got kind of like a hammer and a wrench and stuff. And then yeah, he's got a little pistol on his that holsters onto his leg. I don't know if he's got a knife somewhere too, but these GI Joe figures are always pretty well armed with accessories. Oh, I lost you for a sec there. You all right?
Oh yeah, I'm good. My phone just said, "Hey, you have 20% battery life left."
Well, we still have a few figures to go
I
through,
know.
so let's
We're
move
we're
on,
good.
perhaps.
We're good.
Okay. But yeah, last thing I'll say about this guy is like I had the vintage one when I was a kid, loved it, and then when they did a remake of him in the 4-inch line, they changed up his purples, and he wasn't as fun. Like his purples were a lot more flatter.
Yeah,
So the sculpt was nice. It was cool to see this character sculpted a little bit better because the old one, the vintage one, had like kind of a round head. He didn't look very imposing. I thought the 4-inch one had a like this is a pretty imposing helmet. It's kind of like Darth Vader esque.
yeah. It kind of also reminds me. I don't know if any of our viewers have played like the modern Wolfenstein games, but he looks like one of the Wolfenstein troopers.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not familiar with that, but yeah, I feel like they took the good sculpt of the 4-inch figure, and then they took the nice colors of the 3 3/4 inch figure, and kind of arrived at the dare I say the perfect Techno-Viper. This guy's pretty
I
awesome.
remember them talking about this character specifically on one of their Hasbro Pulse cons, where they were
Yeah,
talking about how they got that color scheme and they weren't trying to change a lot of this figure because he was so on point in the original.
yeah. And like I don't have I'll put a picture up somewhere about the 4-inch one, but like I don't have my vintage or my 4-inch GI Joes on hand anymore, and it's a real pain in the butt to kind of haul them out for these videos. So it's easier for me to just put in a picture. But for the next guy, maybe let's move on to Big Boa.
Sure.
Now, I used to have all my 4-inch GI Joes, which we call the modern line, even though they're not really modern anymore. But so I had all my 4-inch Joes on display here not too long ago. I just took them down like last summer when I repainted this room and moved some things
Yeah.
around. But I had one little shelf space that I thought I have hundreds of these figures, but I'm going to take like my top 20 favorites and kind of put them on this one little shelf. So for that reason, I have my favorites on hand. They're just over here to my right. So I have my 4-inch Big Boa here, which sounds a little dirty, but there you
Hey,
go.
man.
So yeah, the vintage one from the 80s, which I came out maybe 87. Uh, my brother Doug had that one, so I didn't have him when I was a kid. I'm pretty sure I have it now in my vintage collection. But yeah, I was pretty excited to get this version when it came out, uh, probably around 2017, 16, 17, something like that. And this was like a exclusive to the GI Joe Collectors Club. You had to sign up for a figure subscription service through the mail in order to get this figure. So he is kind of rare. There's probably a lot of 4-inch collectors that never were able to get this figure, and it's awesome. Um, so they took everything that was great about the vintage one, made it better, and now Hasbro has done it again because this new one is, I think he's incredible. I love it.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of this figure. I have nothing better to do, guys, than sit around and watch like unboxing videos and reviews since literally can't do anything else. Um,
Yeah,
the one thing I never thought of this until I saw a couple videos talk about it, but he came with the alternate head, and
yeah, which I'm fishing for right now.
a
But
lot of
yeah,
collectors thought that that took away from the mystery of what Big Boa looks like because he never had an alternate head, and it just kind of it took him down a peg or two, according to some viewers. But like, I think it's kind of cool to have the alternate head, especially how it looked. And you filled me in on the backstory about this guy, how it was actually supposed to be modeled after Rocky Balboa, hence the name, and then so I think it's cool. Like, I don't care that there's an alternate head; doesn't do anything for me. But um,
yeah,
this figure, I can imagine, is so fun to pose with.
yeah. I actually don't have a Rocky figure in this scale, but I have a 6-inch Ivan Drago that I could have him box. I must break you. But yeah, just like there were a couple of real life celebrities in GI Joe in the 80s,
Yeah.
like Sergeant Slaughter and William the Refrigerator Perry, who was a football player. Um, and then later, Rowdy Roddy Piper was
Yep.
made into a GI Joe. So yeah, for a time, the fictional character of Rocky Balboa was supposed to be a GI Joe, and it got pretty far down the development, so they decided they needed a villain for Rocky specifically, so they designed Big Boa. But then something fell through with the Rocky deal. It never happened, but we still ended up with this boxing gloved Cobra guy anyway. So he's like the Cobra trainer, and he's pretty cool. The vintage figure was awesome. Like, he was kind of buff. Like, most of the vintage figures were all scaled the same.
Yeah.
But Big Boa and like Road Pig, there was a couple figures that came later in the line where you could really tell that they sculpted them to be muscular guys. And this guy here, that holds up. Like, he's bigger than most of the other figures. You already mentioned the alternate head, so we might as well haul that out here. This is, again, I don't know if you can really see it in much detail here, but I'll probably have to put in a picture so you can see it clearly. But he looks like a thug on the street or something. Like, he's got a scar on his cheek. He's like missing a tooth. He doesn't have a black eye. I'm kind of surprised actually, but yeah, he looks like a bruiser. So it's appropriate. The head. Um, the vintage figure head boxing gloves that slid on. There was slits on the side so they could fit over his hands. This one does the same thing as the 4-inch one. Instead of sliding on, you just have alternate hands. So if you want to give him his bandaged up hands, we can see there's like blood on the bandages and stuff. you could give him those. The vintage figure came with like a little punching bag. What are those bags that you
Fast bag.
like a fast bag? He came with one of those. This guy does not,
He,
unfortunately, come with one of those, but he does have his little barbells here.
what's he lifting? 90.
90, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's a pretty cool accessory. So obviously he can't hold them with his boxing gloves, but if you want to give him his bandaged hands, then you could give him his boxing gloves. I like the alternate head. I can't imagine anybody would choose to display him with this head instead of this
Cool.
super cool helmet,
Yeah.
which is like all spikes and it's got like a breathing hose. Again, it looks like something right out of Star Wars. Like he could be a bounty hunter. But yeah, I don't think it necessarily ruins the mystique. I understand people saying that. There's a lot of Cobra characters that I don't really want to know what they look like. Like Wild Weasel is the Cobra pilot. He's mysterious. I don't really need to know what he looks like. If they make a Wild Weasel figure and he's got like an unmasked head with like and he's got a twirly mustache and glasses or something, I'll be like, oh man, he looks like a weirdo, and that he won't be as cool to me anymore.
It's actually
But
polypore.
yeah, got a big like Richard Simmons hair or something. I don't want these characters to be ruined on me. But as far as Big Boa, if I had to imagine what he looked like under his helmet, I would have guessed something like this anyway. And if memory serves, they have showed him in the comic books without his helmet on in the past as well. So it's not like a total
Yeah.
shocker, you know. But anyway, yeah, this is like the Techno-Viper, this is another one that is a potential toy of the year for me. Like I love this figure. All right, moving on.
Let's do it.
All right, so those were the two Cobras in the wave. There's also two Joes. So let's go with old Quick Kick here. So this is the G.I. Joe. I don't know. He's a martial artist. Maybe you remember from reading his file card because you're a martial artist yourself. Do you remember what his specialty is?
I believe it was hand-to-hand combat.
So it's not like karate or taekwondo or anything in particular?
Karate, I think. Karate or kung fu.
Yep.
Can't remember.
I would guess it's maybe karate just because he came out in the 80s when like Karate Kid was all the rage, that it would make sense for them to give us a karate guy.
The only complaint I have about this figure,
Yeah.
and it goes for any toy line, is the stupid
Hmm.
nunchucks. Give us metal clips so that they're not straight up, because that looks ridiculous.
Yeah. I get it. I have some toys that have the metal nunchucks that actually have real metal
Yeah,
links, and they definitely look better than these things because yeah, he's holding it up and it just looks
his nunchuck
weirdly rigid.
gravity.
Yeah. But I don't think it's the end of the world. He does have a spot. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but on the back of his belt, like just like Michelangelo figures, he's got four little holders. So you are meant to bend the nunchuck so it goes like this, and he can be stored on the back of his belt. You can also see he's got two swords that are stored in the back of his backpack. He came with a couple extra hands, which I'm not going to bother to show you, but I think he had a karate chopping hand, and
Knife hand.
he's got this weird accessory here. This is like a throwing star in motion.
Yeah.
So there's this kind of translucent trail from the throwing star. But I don't think there's a really convincing way to make him hold it for that effect to really work. So I think this is kind
That's
of
just pointless.
a waste.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of pointless. He has a chocolate bar, which is pretty cool because he was. I think it might reference chocolate on his original file card, but he was also seen eating it in the cartoons and stuff. Like this is one of those characters that had a really big personality in the cartoon that you might not come across if you just had the original toy, because he looked pretty angry and serious on the card art. But then you see the cartoon, and he's kind of a goofball. He's always making jokes. It's kind of funny. The episodes that introduced him took place in like the Arctic, and he's running around in bare
No
feet and
shirt.
like no shirt on and stuff because they got to keep him like on model. But yeah, I think they describe him as he's like he's supposed to be an actual fighter, kind of like Jet Li. He's got real credentials, but he was a Hollywood guy before he joined GI Joe. So he was in like movies. I don't know if he was supposed to be a movie star or maybe just a stunt man. I can't remember. It's
So he's
been so long,
Johnny
but
Cage type of character.
yeah, Johnny Cage kind of thing. And he has an extra head as well. I don't really understand why. Like it's kind of his lips are kind of pursed in this one, but they're pretty similar. Like there's not enough of a distinction. I kind of would have liked to have maybe seen one with a big smile on his face since he is kind of
Like,
goofy in the cartoons.
is that the red sun on his bandana?
It's hard to tell because his hair is swept over top of it, but it looks like yeah, a red circle
If
on a white band.
then it would be karate for sure.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, he's a cool figure. This is a guy that I've always liked him. My brother had the original one when we were kids. Um, and yeah, they've I think the original one was still probably my favorite. Like a lot of times they improved on the 80s toys in the later 4-inch figures, but I didn't really care for the 4-inch quick kick as much. Um, I think it was harder to do like a figure as lean as he's supposed to be, and his proportions looked a little off. But yeah, this guy's great. Again, I don't really have any complaints about this guy myself. So moving on.
Moving on.
All right.
Just the nunchucks for me. But that goes for any toy line, like I said.
Yeah. All right. So the last figure in that wave was another Joe, and this is Airborne. So this is a guy that was really early on in the vintage GI Joe line. Came out in like '83, I believe, and he was the first GI Joe paratrooper. There were a bunch of them later. Like I had the second one, Ripcord, and Ripcord probably went on to become the better known one because he had a really prominent storyline in the comic books. And then they cast Marlon Wayans to play Ripcord
Yeah.
in the movies. So yeah, Airborne kind of got pushed to the background a little bit. But yeah, he's a great character. He's a Native American character, which a lot of people kind of forget too, because after he came out, then there was Spirit, the guy who's like full on braids and feathers and all that sort of stuff. And so everybody remembers him as the Native American guy, but Airborne was as well.
And he's got that nice up sheath.
Yeah, you love the sheaths with the knife that goes
Up,
upward
well,
like
that
that.
it's
So
just that's how I would grab a knife. It seems more intuitive than going up and pulling out
yeah.
like that.
Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to display him like this on my shelf or not. Um, I forget what he had for accessories because I've got a whole bag of kind of everybody's accessories are just kind of mixed together. I think he might have had some extra hands. He probably had another gun, maybe than what you're not seeing here. But otherwise, he does have his like machine gun that you see in his hands. He's got a pistol holstered on his leg. He's got his knife sheathed on his chest. He's got the backpack, which I think is the same backpack that came with Duke with the little shovel on the back. But then he had multiple goggles. And this is where I'm kind of torn because I really like the original figure, but the original figure had the goggles up on the helmet and they were sculpted as part of the helmet.
Yeah.
So you couldn't put his goggles down over his eyes. And the other thing is the goggles were the exact same green as his helmet, which you sometimes saw on old figures just so Hasbro could cut costs because you figure those goggles should have like blue lenses and black strap, but they just left it all green. But what's interesting that this guy came with is so he's got, I think he had 2 pairs of goggles, but he's got the goggles that you see I've got on his eyes, and his helmet. Pop his helmet off here. There we go. So yeah, we can take lose his backpack too. So you can put his goggles on his face like that. They come off. There you go. But I kind of thought I would put them on his helmet and rest them on top of the helmet. Now you can see right now I've got this extra little, I don't know, what do you call those things?
Night vision.
Yeah, it's night vision, but it's also got the 4 different, I don't know. We saw the same accessory with Tunnel
Yeah.
Rat before.
Which is probably why I wouldn't display him like that. I'd
Yeah.
go as you originally had it with just the goggles down.
Yeah, so with this here, you can put the night vision goggles up on his helmet like how I have it. they don't flip down, but you can unplug them and flip them around and plug them in upside down, and then that way they would hover over his eyes like he's actually using them.
Yeah.
But anyway, the other piece that I thought, so I was going to put the goggles over top of the helmet, but then he comes with this, which is like an all green,
Throwback.
looks like a set of goggles, so you can put them over there. So that looks like what the vintage figure's helmet looked like with the goggles sitting on top of the helmet. But these things are textured in such a way that it looks like they're supposed to be cloth of some sort. And I've never thought about that, but maybe if you're jumping out of airplanes, like, do you have something to put over your goggles to protect them, maybe, so the glass doesn't get chipped and stuff? Like, this almost looks like it's intended as a goggle protector. Like, you would put his goggles on and then put this on over top to protect the goggles. Because, like, you can just tell by the lines in the sculpt that it's meant to be kind of like a soft goods. It's not meant to be goggles.
But how would you see?
So, well, I mean, even up on his helmet, like when you're not wearing
Oh,
them, you
yeah,
put
yeah, yeah.
your goggles up, you maybe put this cover over the glass so they don't get chipped or something. That's what I'm wondering.
That was a really dumb comment. Yeah. You're not going to jump out of
But
a
yeah,
plane not being able to see. That's cool.
I probably wouldn't want to be able to see. As long as somebody else was yelling at me to pull the chute, I don't know if I'd want to see what was going on the way down. Okay, so the next one we're going to look at, this is another deluxe figure. So I think he was in the same price point as the anniversary figures. So this guy, he's pretty crazy looking. You can see there's a lot going on here. So let me bring him in here. So this here is Metalhead. So he has got missile launchers on his legs, and there's missiles launching with like little blast effects. Then he's got missile launchers coming off of his backpack, and these things can be rotated around. You can move these little arms up and down. So yeah, he's got missile launchers with blast effects coming off of those. And he's got this crazy medieval helmet looking thing here.
Was that on the retro figure?
What's that?
Was
Well,
that
it was optional. Like he came with a helmet to remove. Like I don't really remember seeing the helmet that much because he was a character that was featured in the cartoon. However, he was only featured in the cartoon. Like I don't know how much you know about the history of G.I. Joe, but like I grew up watching the cartoon, which was made by a company called Sunbow.
Yeah.
So Sunbow did, I think, 3 seasons of the G.I. Joe cartoon. And it was a lot. They crammed a lot of episodes in a season. There was like 100 episodes by Sunbow. And then they did the movie, which was aired as like 3 separate episodes of the show, but it's like an hour and a half movie. And that was the movie where, spoiler alert, Cobra Commander turns into a snake, and Sergeant Slaughter joins the team, and Cobra La is introduced. And then after that, there was nothing. I kind of thought the movie was the end of G.I. Joe because I never saw another episode of G.I. Joe after that. Until years later, I found out that another company called Deke, they picked up the G.I. Joe license and they started a new cartoon. And it wasn't aired on the same networks or whatever. So, like, I don't think it ever aired in Canada. And it was far inferior in quality, like the animation style. They were using the characters that were new in the line at that point. So when the movie came out in 87, 88, I was already kind of winding down from G.I. Joe. And the new cartoon by Deke starred all the new characters that were coming out in the late 80s and the early 90s. And those characters aren't remembered as fondly by, kids of my generation. Anyway, so Metalhead was featured in the Deke cartoon, which I didn't see until I was an adult because I never knew it existed as a kid. But he's a real goofball in the cartoons. Like he's like insane. He's always hooting and hollering and all that sort of stuff. This guy was never really in the comic books to any extent. He might have appeared once or twice, but they never really showcased him. So, and I never owned the vintage toy when I was a kid. He came out too late in the game. So I really had no attachment to this guy whatsoever. But in the, let me see, he's got, I think, two haircuts here, which is kind of weird. So Yeah, I'm pretty sure the vintage figure came with this crazy medieval helmet that he could wear, but you didn't see it much because in the cartoon he always wore just goggles. So here you see he take his hair off, and he doesn't have an actual bald head. He's got these big gashes in his head, which is kind of like the Lady J
Yeah,
figure or the Zorana figure, which gave you alternate hairstyles. So this is him with his long flowing black hair, which I kind of like this look. But then he also has this other hairdo that's got goggles attached to it. So you put on his goggles and his hairdo all at once, which I don't think I've actually done yet. Um, and I'm not getting it on there quite right, but you get the idea. So yeah, he's got his goggles and his hair, and this is how he appeared in the cartoons, and this is what he looked like on the packaging artwork and stuff. So this is how I remember him. Um, I think out of the three options, I'm either going to display him without the goggles or maybe even with the helmet. I kind of put the helmet on thinking it was going to look really stupid, but then I've been looking at him for like a week with the helmet on, and I kind of like it.
yeah. I'm not sure how I would display it. I tend to lean more of the haircut with maybe the
With
goggles.
the goggles or without.
Uh, Actually, I'd probably go without the goggles.
Yeah. Now, one thing, and maybe I'll be wrong with this, but this guy came with all these missiles attached to these like trails of smoke. So it looks like he's launching all these missiles, which is what like Scrap Iron came with
Yeah.
something similar. He had all these. But I think if you take the stream out, because you see they're pretty big ports. I don't know if you've seen this,
Hmm.
but it's a pretty big fat port for that smoke. And if you take the missile off of the flame, it doesn't really attach. Like it doesn't slide in the hole and it doesn't plug because it's a port on a port instead of a peg.
Yeah.
Which I kind of, if I want this guy just at rest on my shelf, I would kind of like all the missiles to just attach to the sides of his legs, because you kind of almost are either forced to put all the missiles and the smoke in your spare parts bin, or you have to make it look like he's always in like mid
Fine.
insanity here, firing 6 missiles off all at once.
Hey man, if I was
And
equipped with those rocket launchers, that's probably what I would do. Just fire off all at once.
yeah, but like again, I don't play with my toys, but I always kind of think with the mentality like if I played with my toys, I wouldn't want to have to go in into a bucket and get his weapons out all the time. But I wouldn't want him just standing around in like a staff meeting like this with all this shit flying off of him. Like it just looks ridiculous. It's kind of like when your diver has his flippers on when he's
Yeah.
hanging out of the headquarters. You know, it just doesn't look great. So yeah, I
Do,
wish there was an option for his missiles to be at rest.
do GI Joes have regular staff meetings?
I think Cobra Commander calls them together for like propaganda every now and again.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I think this is a cool figure. Like a lot of these deluxe figures, I would have been just as happy to pay $20 less for them and not get all the extra gadgets.
Yeah.
I don't really need all the bells and whistles, but yeah, he's pretty cool. I like him. So now I've got some vintage carded figures. So these ones come on the retro style card, which like for all these figures, I'm going to insert pictures of them in the boxes or in the cards or whatever, so you guys can see what they like. So yeah, all those figures we just talked about, those guys came in the kind of standard box that we're used to seeing classified figures. These next three figures came on the vintage cards, and I will say the vintage cards are so much better quality now than they used to be. The old ones were like basically on 8.5 by 11, like piece of paper. Like they're so
Yeah.
flimsy. They're
If
garbage. You couldn't pin them on your wall or something because they probably tear the back of
if I
them.
was an inbox collector, that would absolutely drive me up the wall.
Yeah, like I think I got one right here. Ugh.
Because even at Walmart, like if you see them on the shelves at Walmart, they look friggin' terrible.
Yeah, like this is like it's nice and solid. It doesn't have a. This is what we wanted from the get go. I don't know why they were giving us such flimsy, stupid little cards, but
Cheaper.
anyway. Yeah. All right. Well, since I showed you the packaging, we might as well start with Scarlett. So here is Retro Card Scarlett. This was not a figure I was necessarily like dying for because I actually was pretty happy with the other Scarlett. I know a lot of people really didn't like the first Scarlett we got, so they really wanted this. Now that we have it, I'm happy we have it. I think it is a really good figure. But yeah, I don't know. You got any thoughts on this one?
I'm glad to see that she actually comes with a display base, like all of
Yeah.
the
All the retro card
ones
ones do,
do,
yeah.
because in the digital render, like after they announced it when they were showing her, you had messaged me and said, "Look, she doesn't even have a stand in her package." I was like, "Well, that's stupid."
Yeah, the promotional images they released of her, there was you could tell there was no stand in the packaging, but that was either just a mock
Yeah,
up digitally or whatever. So yeah, she does come with a stand,
which is,
which is nice.
but I don't have a Scarlet, so I think that's a stunning figure.
Yeah, it is nice. Now I'll just grab the other Scarlet for comparison. So when Classified first came out, this is the Scarlet that we got in Wave One. So this one here won't stand up straight for some reason too. She's kind of tipping over a lot, but so yeah, there's the comparison. Like this one is definitely more reminiscent of the original 1982 Scarlet as far as color, as far as outfit, all that sort of stuff. This one here I thought looked too young. Like I like the figure, but her face is almost too cute, and she's got little freckles on her face, which kind of make her look younger. You know, they added some purple, and she's got some gold and some red. She's got a lot more color going on. But I do like this figure. I like the head sculpt. This one here, I know you won't be able to see all the detail on camera, but I think she looks older for sure, which is good. I think Scarlett should be older. Like you and I talked about this a little bit in that when I was a kid, I never got the impression that the GI Joes were supposed to be, fresh, off into the army like
Yeah,
18-year-olds. Because we were kind of sold the idea that GI Joe was the best of the best, so they took like the best, you know, Air Force man, the best Marine, and they put them on the GI Joe team. So these were veterans. So I think they shouldn't look like kids. But this Scarlet, she looks older and she kind of looks tired. I feel they kind of put. I think they were trying to put blush on her cheeks, but they almost look like bags under her eyes. So
maybe she's tired of all the announcements they're making for new characters.
yeah. And the other thing with this figure too, and again, I don't want to knock it because like I love Scarlet, but her outfit, like in 1982, all the other Joes, with the exception of maybe Snake Eyes, but they all wore like standard military
Yeah,
olive green, you know, army combat boots, and Snake Eyes was basically wearing the same thing too, except his was just painted all black. Scarlet, I don't know if the guys that designed G.I. Joe just didn't know, like, what do girls in the military wear? Because they put her in this unitard with a bathing suit over top of it. Like, it just didn't make sense. And so that's one thing I like about later redesigns of her like this. Like, here she's at least wearing pants. Like, the fact that they went back to the vintage, figure for inspiration here, this is a nice new version of the vintage figure, but she's back to wearing the weird bathing suit over the pant legs and stuff. Like, she doesn't look combat ready. I don't really know what this outfit is supposed to be. So it's a good figure, but this might, and I'm kind of surprised to say it because Scarlett is a character again that I really like her, but this might be my least favorite of this bunch.
I can respect that.
Yeah. Now you can see she's got a little pistol there. She's got a knife that's sheathed on her leg. She's got a backpack, which I don't think the vintage one had a backpack. And there's clips on the side. So I think she had two machine guns. I've only got her with one. That's kind of the standard G.I. Joe, like laser rifle there. But I think she also had a machine gun. So that can clip on there. I really like the fact that she's got this quiver here for her little arrows for
Crossbow.
her little crossbow. And she came with an alternate ponytail. So this one's kind of more of a windswept one, which I think works better when she's got her backpack on. I think this one might get in the way if she had her backpack on because it hangs
Ah,
more straight down.
yeah.
But if you're a stickler for the wanting to recreate the original figure, because Scarlett always had long hair in the comic books and the cartoon, but the figure had short hair. So it kind of looked like, if you can imagine this figure without the, I'll pop her thingy off here. I don't want to break it, but yeah, with her hair just like that, that's more what the vintage figure looked like. So I think if you wanted to pop this ponytail on so it just hung straight behind her, it would look more like the vintage figure from the front anyway. But I think I prefer the windswept ponytail myself.
Yeah,
What's up?
I think I would too. That over a hole in the back of the head. Anyway,
Oh shit, man! Look, we're going over an hour again.
that's okay. That's what happens when they all pile up.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, so let's move on to Duke. Now, so here is Retro Card Duke. I think he's got most of his accessories on him. He might have come with another gun and probably some extra hands that I don't have handy. But otherwise, you see he's got his like laser rifle. He's got his backpack with the little shovel on the back. He's got binoculars, just like the vintage figure. He's got a knife sheathed on his boots. He's got the display stand. Uh, and then my favorite thing is the helmet.
The clear visor.
I don't really think of Duke wearing a helmet because he never wore it really in the cartoons. But I love that this helmet looks like the vintage 1982 helmets. There's no extra sculpting. It's just a simple round helmet, and then it's got the clear visor that can be lifted up. And I loved that clear visor. Like Short Fuse was one of my original 1982 Joes, and he had that visor that went up and down. I loved it. So he looks great with the helmet on. It fits nice and snug, but then you can pop it off, and he's got that
Classic
super
look.
super coiffed, really nice haircut underneath. So, what do you think of Duke?
I like him. I don't have a Duke. The only Duke I have, well, I do have a Duke, but this would be
Tiger Force Duke.
the third Duke that we have in the
Yes,
classified line. So I only have the one with Ram with the Tiger Force Duke and his
Tiger Force one.
yeah.
Like I will say, these Duke keeps surprising me because even though I've always loved GI Joe, I didn't not like Duke, but Duke was definitely not one of my favorite characters. If anything, I was kind of more anti Duke than pro Duke. Um, just because I like the more interesting characters that were a little quirkier. Duke was just kind of that all American captain of the football team, blonde guy. He just didn't seem as interesting to me. And I kind of felt like he was forced down your throat a little bit in the cartoon in the comic books to some degree. But when the classified line started, this is the first Duke we got.
Yeah.
So again, I think you can see, sort of like with the Scarlett, they tried to make him feel a little younger, a little more contemporary, a little more inspired by Fortnite, maybe, with his colors and his design. And to my surprise, I love this figure. Like it just really worked for me. I don't know. It was just making Duke a little younger, a little hipper, making his design just a little bit more interesting than the original, like 84 figure, I think it was for him. Um, yeah, I really like this one. And I really didn't need an update when they started doing the retro card figures that look more like the vintage toys. I felt the same way with Duke as I did with Scarlett. Like, I heard a lot of people online complaining about the new designs, but I liked the new designs. And I didn't need these figures revisited. But now that I've got this Duke, again, I love it. I think like this might be my favorite of the figures we're talking about today, which the Techno-Viper, the Big Boa, such cool designs. But there's just something about Duke. He's so elegantly simple and so classic military. He just really captures the look. Um, yeah, I'm surprised how much I like it, but I like it a lot.
Yeah, he's definitely a solid character. I think I prefer him over the Tiger Force.
Yeah, because the Tiger Force one's just a repaint of this
Yeah,
one, which I have. I could dig him out, but he's yeah.
just insert a picture.
Well, whatever. He's right there. I'll grab him. You keep talking.
Uh, um, yeah. Well, I think with like not having that first Duke,
Yeah,
that's kind of giving this guy a little more favoritism. Um, if I somehow end up tracking the first one down, I would probably still buy it, but he would be my least favorite out of the three.
now, technically, like these are the three Dukes, but there's arguably four Dukes, depending on how you want to look at it. Because there was kind of a wave 1.0
Right? Yeah.
um, with Scarlett and with Roadblock and with Duke, because they were getting a lot of negative feedback about all the bright colors. They did do another run of these figures, and it looks almost the same, except I think his watch is black instead of orange. They toned down some of the gold and replaced it with more muted colors. So it's not necessarily considered a true variant. It's more like a running change. But some people really prefer the 1.0
Right.
version. So anyway, but yeah, so all great figures. I really love the original, but I really love the new one. And dare I say, I might even like the new one more. So maybe I was wrong that I didn't need another Duke. Um, this guy could be a figure of the year again for me, which would be crazy. Duke be my number one figure of the year, like 2 out of 4 years or
Yeah.
something. But it's good. All right. Anything more on him?
No, I think we covered all our bases with Duke.
Okay, we've got one more retro card figure to talk about, and that is Recondo, the GI Joe Jungle Trooper. So here he is in all his glory.
I love this figure.
Yeah, this guy's got. I'm fine with his twirly mustache
Yeah,
because
well,
that's true to the original character. But that's what I would not want Wild Weasel to look like that. But
anytime
anyway,
anytime I see like Aussies with those hats, that's how I perceive them with the twirly mustaches. Like
yeah,
Safari guides would have twirly mustaches. But I I love this figure. I like that his pistol is in a holster on his chest and not
yeah,
on the side.
on his leg or something.
Yeah. Just little small details like that. It switches up the sculpts a little bit and
Yeah, and his knife, instead of like the standard little knife that we see on all these other guys,
it,
he's got like a big machete
yeah.
that can be sheathed on his leg here. So that's cool. Are you getting any connective issues? I keep getting little
I see
messages that say we're trying.
reconnecting, but it's for Joe.
Okay, well, yeah. So is he freezing up on you?
Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully. Oh, and we lost you. You're back. All right. I'm having a little trouble getting Joe back here though.
I see Joe. He's at 99%.
You see him on
Yep.
screen? Why do I not see him? Doesn't make any sense. Um. Shit. Okay. Anyway, I'm not entirely sure what's happening. We've run into some technical difficulties because I cannot see the GI Joe on screen anymore. But Chad, you
I
can see
can see
him.
him.
I can. Now, mind you, I can physically see him. He's right here beside me. So yeah, we're still talking about Recondo here. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure. I don't want to really necessarily continue, even though Chad, you can see him. I don't want to talk about these things a whole bunch and then realize the viewers can't see what we're talking about. So anyway, Recondo was really the last single carded figure we were going to talk about. So anything more on Recondo?
No, I don't think
It's a bit of a
so.
shame.
I said my piece. I just think he's a solid figure. I love. I wasn't too keen on the Tiger Force one that they put out. And then
Yeah,
I'm
because
glad I did
I wanted to.
buy him because you were like, no, they're gonna re-release him.
Yeah, it was kind of strange that they released Tiger Force Recondo before regular Recondo. But yeah, as soon as they released this one, I knew they were going to repaint it into the classic colors. So that was like a foregone conclusion. Um, yeah, this is the original one that came out when I was a kid. So this is the look that he had in the comic books and the cartoon. This is the look I like better. But okay, so that's Recondo. So we'll wrap him up. Now it's kind of a shame because we kind of need the extra camera for the last bit here because this is the big one. This is the clutch with the vamp.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed our little GI Joe marathon session here, be sure to like, subscribe, give us a subscribe,
Subscribe.
and leave us some comments. What did you like about this haul? Any figures you're kind of hoping to see? Any of these versions you dislike more than previous versions? Anything like that. Just we love chatting with you guys. So on that note, until next time, keep collecting.
Ciao.